My new channel's name is Wakatush, which means big sister. In bringing focus to this time and space that we meet here today, I wanted to bring our attention to the traditional language of this place, because the traditional language of this place exists in some form unbroken across realities, and that language holds the space, it holds the vibration of the teachings of the land, it holds the space of the teachings to be in alignment with what it means to be human. It doesn't hold the specificity of being Indigenous, it holds the specificity of being human. That is the importance of Indigenous languages. I want to acknowledge the original language of this place as it upholds the vibration of the land. I want to acknowledge the traditional ceremonies of this place because it upholds the teachings of how to be here and to be responsible. What we attain within the concept of sustainability, what we retain within the concept of impact exists within Indigenous languages. And it's within that I wanted to be able to introduce the concept of indigenomics. Do I have a story for you? From a hashtag to a global movement. To be able to understand that the landing and the conceptual development of indigenomics is a concept, to take two words and use the technological advancement of a hashtag to build a value stream of a series of stories and experience of life as sustainability and indigeneity. From that time to building a global movement, I wanted to talk to you today about the concept of indigenomics and the evolution of it across time. The concept of indigenomics is future-pacing the story of Indigenous economic power through a forward-looking target and restoring the concept of Indigenous prosperity by driving a national and international economic narrative to amplify positive action, leadership, and outcomes. Indigenous economic power is the creation of space at the economic table that is about expanding economic opportunities, driving support for Indigenous businesses, while advancing the development of partnerships for expanded market access and sustainable business development. To be able to bring focus to this concept, I describe it as modern, constructive, generative, Indigenous economic design. To be able to bring Indigenous perspectives using the tool of business and economy as constructive and generative tools that advance our ways of being and our ability to design from our Indigenous worldview. Indigenomics is about disrupting the existing narrative of what we've been told economy is. Indigenous economies have been successful for thousands of years. The concept specifically, as it's advanced within the Canadian context, is developing a forward-looking trajectory, naming the rise of Indigenous economic power through the emergence of a $100 billion annual Indigenous economy. This past week, we developed a report that identified what $100 billion of Indigenous economic activity looked like. But what is important to understand that our people, my parents, my grandparents, are survivors of the residential school system. To understand that this is being done in this generation, and while the success of this generation has been built on the success of thousands of years of economic teachings that bring forward why we do business, how we do business, and the purpose that is in the context that that's created within. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about from the development of a hashtag towards a global movement. Last week, we delivered the second annual Indigenomics on Bay Street event. As a national Indigenous economic forum, it's an invitation for changemakers, innovators, leadership across corporate Canada, the financial sector, governments, and Indigenous businesses to bring focus, meaning, and visibility to the strength of the Indigenous economy, while building bridges for impactful outcomes in economic reconciliation. To be able to bring forward into the heart of the financial sector a story of Indigenous economic power, a story of Indigenous business sustainable leadership. Last week, we launched Indigenomics AI, an Indigenous economic intelligence tool built from an Indigenous worldview. To be able to build an Indigenous economic intelligence tool that will analyze financial, regulatory data and align Indigenous economic values with measurable action, insights for decision-making, and capital deployment objectives within the Indigenous economy. Indigenomics is an invitation. The question, who wants to play Indigenomics? The invitation to come and be present in economic reconciliation, to address the truths of our past, and to be comfortable with the truths of the present and the truths of our future, which is about Indigenous participation and inclusion. The Indigenomics AI, one of the first market innovations from this engine, is the development of an Indigenomics North Star Index, the creation of an Indigenous index for advancing Indigenous economic growth and reconciliation within the capital markets to accelerate capital velocity and to drive market demand. The concept of Indigenomics is bringing into focus the significance and importance of Indigenous people within an AI system that allows the space for our worldview, that uses the space for the way that we understand and operate within the world, and also within the current, the historical, and the future context. We're launching what's called Indigenomics Impact, which will be in April 2025. It'll be 100 stories of Indigenous economic reconciliation impact, using the Indigenomics AI system to advance the stories, to develop data, and to build a digital platform that recognizes the leadership in the Indigenous economy and who is leading in reconciliation, bringing visibility to that story and the response to the rise of the Indigenous economic economy today. In 2 weeks, we're delivering Indigenomics Now. It's established as a space for modern Indigenous economic design that's built on the foundation of the concept, life at the center. It will serve as a design platform to create the space for unique and diverse Indigenous voices upholding Indigenous economic worldview. The concept is highlighting Indigenous economic knowledge systems. It's a global Indigenous economic design platform for connecting and engaging and upholding, while highlighting Indigenous sustainable economic leadership. It's about upholding Indigenous economic worldview, which for hundreds and hundreds of years has been denied. The concept of Indigenomics Now in the visual demonstration of a lightning bolt to be able to understand that concept and the experience of the shakeup of an economic system that is not serving the well-being of humanity or of the earth itself. It's time to shake that up. The concept of life at the center, how do we measure the proximity of our actions and our outcomes? In Indigenous worldview, the concepts and the lived realities of accountability to our past, to ourselves, and to our future. To build the metrics and to design a system that advances this concept, to measure what matters, to actually understand what impact is, to look at our business models and call to account what is the proximity of our business model to life at the center. It is time to return to life at the center of what actual economy is and which is built into Indigenous worldview. The concept of Indigenomics Now is to return economy to natural systems. We built the agenda around 13 moons and 13 streams of content. These 13 streams of content to align with the natural law, to align with the natural world. To build a stage that is reflective, responsive, and adaptive, to look at that from the perspective of 4 directions, 4 elements, 4 grandparents, and all of the aspects that is embedded with Indigenous worldview, that the alignment of natural law with economy means, and how do we build economy with life at the center. The next aspect that we're building is a global Indigenous technology house. Our intention here is to build strong, creative, and dynamic outcomes rooted in immersive technology that supports an increase in the visibility and experience of Indigenous worldview, stories, knowledge systems, and ways of being through the application of integrated global technology through music, film, and interactive experience. We would love to see you here next year with the Global Indigenous Technology House. It is advancing a global ecosystem to foster immersive experience centered in Indigenous wisdom, which, when synergized with advancing technologies such as AI and spatial computing, promises to produce compelling, transformative, and inclusive storytelling experiences for humanity. To bring this into focus and to realize the potential of the rise of Indigenous economy, of Indigenous peoples taking our seat at the economic table, is the beautiful expression, "We are a powerful people." So in all the spaces and all the structures that were denied to us as people across time, it's in the darkest shadows, in the survival of residential school survivors. It is in this space that we pick up the tool of business and we hold our future clearly in sight with our responsibility to ourselves, to each other, to the earth, and to our future clearly in our sight. This is our response. The response to be able to understand and have clearly our responsibility of what impact means, to be able to bring into focus the story of now and what is the collective response that we are building. This is going to take courage. The invitation is, who wants to play in Indigenomics? Let's all have impact, and let's have the courage to do this together. Thank you.